Don't get what? Abolish the police? Tear down statues of Lincoln? Maybe give communism another shot? Get rid of the border patrol? Get rid of capitalism? White supremacy has never been worse? Gender is always just a social construct? It's okay to have penises in the women's swimming pool in women's prisons? Okay. No, it's not that I'm old. It's that your ideas are stupid.
I think Bill Maher, I don't know what was the light switch that turned on in him, but I think he perfectly encapsulated what's happening and who the Democrat Party of today has been. As I've told you, I come up through the Chicago machine, Richard M. Daley, Mike Madigan machine when I was a young lad, didn't know any better, and thought the Democrat Party, because I was always told the Democrats are for the poor and the Republicans are for the rich. And I had my own epiphany when I realized, wait a minute, I don't want to be poor all my life. I do want to be rich. And that started the journey for me of becoming a Republican, and that was 20-something plus years ago. Joining me now is Casey Crosbie, co-chair of the Republican National Committee and one of the driving forces behind the GOP's national strategy under President Trump's second administration. I actually met her back in 2016 at the GOP, I believe at one of the GOP events. She's represented Kentucky on the RNC since 2012 and has been instrumental in building the grassroots infrastructure that's fueling this next coming conservative wave. With the president signing the continuing resolution last night, many are asking what comes next, not just in terms of fiscal reform, but the future direction of this movement of America First heading into the 2026 midterms. Casey Crosbie joins us to talk about the administration's progress, the fight for transparency, the path to victory in states like Michigan, and the restoration of public trust. Casey, welcome to Detroit's Morning Answer.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I really do appreciate. I think I met you at the 2016 GOP convention. I think that's where we met. I was a state rep at the time, and I was also a Trump delegate. You probably wouldn't remember me. I'm just a nobody trying to tell everybody about somebody.
I have a pretty good memory, so I'm sure if we were face to face, I'm sure I would remember you.
Yeah, but Casey, let's start with the breaking news. President Trump. Yeah. He signed the continuing resolution last night. What do you think this move signaled to voters and to D.C.?
Well, first of all, I'm happy to see that our elected officials got their act together and we were able to get something passed yesterday. I mean, the Republicans did their job and the Democrats held the American people hostage for the longest shutdown ever. And, just to be very clear, finally, when they voted and we got some to come our way, they got absolutely nothing from this. And I think President Trump was pretty clear last night that the Republicans are not going to give in to extortion. They held the American people, our veterans, some of our most vulnerable women, children, hostages and made them pawns in this little game that they were playing. And it didn't work out for them. They ended up voting for something that was proposed to them over a month ago, and they got absolutely nothing out of it. So I'm happy to see that the president signed it last night, and, the House will now do their job and get some of these spending bills through over the next month before the end of January. And hopefully we won't have to go through this again.
And you know what, Casey? I have to tip my hat. I know when Lara Trump and I forget Watley took over on the national stage, the fight in the National Republican Party it made me proud as a Republican. But what I've seen under this, under your tutelage, your leadership, you guys have taken it to a whole nother level. And I'm going to tell you, I am so proud to be a Republican today because of the fight that I see. And we stopped following the old Republican playbook that the Democrats knew oh so well. And it led to defeat after defeat after defeat. What went into the mindset of you guys when you said, you know what, we're tired of the old Republican playbook. We're here to win, and we're here to stay, and we're here to take care and ensure that the American people and the America First agenda is implemented?
Yeah, so, our goal at the RNC is pretty simple. It is that we want to make sure President Trump is a 4-year president. And we do that by winning midterms. And it started back when he became our nominee. We saw immediately that he came into the RNC and wanted to work together and wanted, his leadership in there. So he appointed Michael Watley to be our chairman, and of course our wonderful co-chair Lara Trump at the time to come in, and it gave a lot of confidence in the direction we were going. I served as treasurer at that time, and I can tell you that the mentality became all about winning.
Yes.
Even with our investors, every dollar that we spent was going towards producing a win. And so then we completely changed our mentality at the RNC. And frankly, if it didn't produce a win for Republicans, we were not going to spend our money or our resources, our time, energy, anything on it. And so that restored a lot of confidence in the party. We stepped up growing our party under President Trump, and we saw, he won all 7 swing states, which was amazing in itself. He grew the party in every demographic, whether it was blacks, Hispanics, women, youth. We saw our election integrity program notch up, and we figured out that through litigation and also being active with election integrity and making sure we had. You mentioned Detroit having poll workers going in and having to sue the city of Detroit because during a primary they would not hire Republican election workers. We sued him, came up with a memorandum of understanding, and had 600 on the ground for Election Day. And so we really ramped up our election integrity efforts, and we showed that under President Trump and his leadership that we win elections when we focus on those things.
If you're just joining the show, we're talking with Casey Crosbie. She's the co-chair of the Republican National Committee. When you look at what President Trump has accomplished in less than a year, there's so much to tackle, but from lowering inflation to strengthening our border and bringing back manufacturing, what stands out the most to you?
All of it. It's been crazy. It's just been, I used to tease because when I first was elected to this position in January, he was moving at such a fast pace. It was so hard to keep up. With everything that he was doing with his executive orders and things that he was pushing through. And, I can say that simply, President Trump, it's promises made, promises kept. And so, I always tease, I put my money on President Trump. And sometimes people will get all upset and say, why are we doing this or why are we doing that? And I'm like, President Trump, there's always a strategy. There is always a method to the madness sometimes of how we get somewhere. And it's been simply amazing to see everything that he's been able to accomplish. We're not even a year into this administration. And again, I'm just so proud to be able to work under this president and support the America First agenda. And, don't be mistaken, President Trump, if there's one thing he cares about, it's the American people. And I think he showed this through the shutdown, that he was not going to let us be extorted as pawns in the Democrats' game. And they came away with absolutely nothing. Amen. Again, and they own this.
Exactly. One of the things, when I was a cop, I was a trained hostage crisis negotiator. One thing that I've seen under your administration as being the co-chair of the Republican National Committee is when I was trained as a hostage crisis negotiator, one of the things that you tried to do is you understood the emotions of the people that you were dealing with. Republicans have not done a great job of tying success and emotions. The Democrats, they don't give about success, but they understand emotions. How does the RNC plan to frame all of these achievements that has happened under this administration in a way that connects emotionally and economically with everyday Americans? Because that's how the America First agenda continues.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I think what we're seeing, if you even look at going into the holidays now, where gas prices are down, people can travel for less money, talking about the fact that grocery prices are starting to come down and things that impact everyday Americans' lives. You mentioned you were a cop, and people want to have good lives. They want to not be paying ridiculous prices like we did under Biden at the grocery store. They want to be able to travel and enjoy nice things. They want to feel safe in their cities. And President Trump has made all those things a priority. And certainly we are out as the Republican National Committee talking every single day about the America First agenda and the policies that President Trump has put into place and how it impacts, Americans in our everyday life. And I think that, we're going to start seeing some of these policies, and we're going to see legislation that starts to get passed now that the government's open, that the everyday Americans are going to start seeing how these policies work in their lives. And we have to remember that Biden created a complete mess. Yeah. And we're having to undo a lot of things, whether it's the waste, fraud, and abuse that we see in government, whether it's the high inflation. we're not even a year in, and we're already seeing great things, and it's only going to get better from here on out.
Now, Casey, you talked about legislation moving. I want to get your take on this. President Trump said this last night at the signing of the CR.
I also want to call for a termination to the filibuster so that this can never happen again. If we had the filibuster terminated, this would never happen again.
Now, Casey, I don't think the House and the Senate is doing a good enough job as it relates to this. People fail to forget, and I mentioned this in my opening monologue. People forget that if it wasn't for Sinema, Fetterman, and Manchin, the Democrats would have they would have nuked the Senate and got 15 Supreme Court justices, Green New Energy deal done. How does the RNC weigh that balance between the tradition of how they operate in D.C. and progress, between defending Senate norms and ensuring the president's agenda gets done? Because I believe if the president's America First agenda is fully implemented, I don't see the Democrats winning in quite some time. What say you, Casey Crosbie?
Yeah, well, definitely we have to start getting some of this legislation passed. And certainly, our elected officials are going to have to ensure that they are passing his legislation and putting America first and putting Americans first and his agenda first. I mean, we know that if we pass President Trump's legislation that is for Americans and the America First policy, that we will win these midterms. And, President Trump, I think his big point is they would do it to us in a heartbeat. Yes. And I think that we have to look at, balancing what is best overall and also getting President Trump's legislation through. And that's, it's a pickle. It's a tough pickle for these elected officials to be in, and they've got some decisions to make, and a lot of them are up for reelection. Yep. And so they're going to have to make some decisions about whether or not they want to keep winning or if they want to keep fighting like this for nothing. As we saw during the shutdown, it was for nothing.
Yeah.
The Democrats held everything up for nothing and used the American people. I say because the people they were impacting were not, people themselves. Certainly, it was, the single mom working at the federal courthouse with 3 kids who didn't get a paycheck for over 6 weeks. I mean, those are the people they were impacting. I live in Kentucky. That's where my home is. We have some of the poorest counties in the country, and people who rely on food stamps who couldn't get them. And, it's really, I think, as Mike Johnson said last night, it's cruel what they did. It is cruel.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I did a CNN hit last Friday, and I basically spoke to that. And for something that doesn't even end until December 31st, that could have easily been negotiated, but they didn't want to do that. And a problem in which they created. It just boggles the mind. But, Casey, Michigan continues to be one of the most watched battlegrounds in the country. What's the RNC seeing on the ground here? And are you guys coming to help a lot of the people, especially once the primaries are over? What's the plan to ensure that that Gary Peters' seat is filled by a Republican, that the Michigan's governor's seat is filled by a Republican? Because when you look at what Speaker Matt Hall and what he has been able to do, they reduced the budget here in Michigan, and they only had the House. How are you guys looking at Michigan as one of those battleground states?
Oh, absolutely. Michigan is one of our top priorities. You are going to be seeing a lot of the RNC in there. We work hand in hand with the state party. Of course, we are completely unified with the White House, and we are currently identifying, all these different targets. But I can tell you unequivocally, Michigan is one of our top targets. We will be there. You will see us working with the state party to grow the party and make sure that we bring back those Trump voters. We need to make sure we get them out to ensure wins in Michigan, as well as having a robust election integrity program. I mean, we saw how effective it was during the 2024 cycle and how active we had to be in the state of Michigan. Off the top of my head, I can't remember how many times we also had to sue your Secretary of State. I mean, and the bar complaints and on. But, Michigan is definitely a state where we have targets and where we will be very visible in the next year.
Yeah, and Chairman Ronstadt, he's a senator here in the state of Michigan. He's been doing a really good job as well. Now, I'd be remiss, and this is probably going to be the final question. The Epstein files, I personally believe it's a distraction. I believe everybody, I stayed up late last night reading through the entire transcript of Miss Maxwell. And, I think Bill O'Reilly said it best.
What we see today is a bunch of innuendo. It's hearsay. There isn't any direct backup for any allegation because there aren't any allegations other than Trump may have been in a house where there are some.
And Casey, when you look at how CNN and how the Democrats, how they initially released it and redacted the name, everybody knew who the name was. I mean, it just goes to show you they will do any and everything to take this president down. What's the messaging of the RNC as it relates to the Epstein files, the transparency? What are you guys going to do to push back against it? Because I see it for what it is. It's going after Trump, and they've gone after him. When you look at everything from the moment he walked down that escalator to today, they have tried to take him down with lies, with false accusations. How do we, because I'm on the radio defending this president almost I do radio 6 days a week. I have a Saturday show called Black and Right where I deal with a lot of the cultural issues. How do you give out the information to people like me who are defending this president against these false accusations?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Bill O'Reilly nailed it on the head with this analysis. And, frankly, last night we saw a discharge petition come up for unanimous consent, and the Dems objected to it. Yeah. So the ones who are so anxious to get this out last night, the Republicans, Burchett out of Tennessee, brought this up on the floor. They had the opportunity to vote on it, and they turned it down. So once again, the Democrats are just playing games with the American people and the information. We see it time and time again. So, yeah.
Yeah, Congresswoman Anna Luna talked about that.
For a town car, Peter, all right?
We're on the lookout.
Thank you. Let's bring in Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, who just voted. I assume you voted to open the government?
I did, Jesse, and I know that some of my colleagues might be a no, but obviously Thune stuck some interesting stuff in it last minute, but it will pass tonight.
So what did Thune stick in it last minute?
Well, there's eight senators specifically, as you know, about that Arctic frost investigation where they illegally wiretapped these senators' phones. And ultimately what it would do would allow them to sue federal government with an automatic settlement of around $500,000. So obviously, look, we don't support what the former DOJ did under Biden, but now's not the time to do that. And I think a lot of opposition in the House of Representatives here, Representative Austin Scott has a bill to actually strip that out of this that we're going to be voting on next week. The Speaker supports that. I support that. I don't think now is the time to do that, especially when you have so many Americans that were targeted by a weaponized DOJ under Biden are not getting special treatment.
So you're saying the Biden administration seized the phone records in an illegal or unconstitutional power grab after January 6th. And Thune stuck in this legislation to enable these senators to sue for the tune of $500,000. So like Lindsey Graham's phone gets tapped and he gets $500,000?
Correct, if they settle. And it's interesting because they didn't put in the provisions for the House members. Mind you, I'm not one of the members that were tapped, but there were House members who had their phones tapped as well. And remember the American people that actually had their stuff dragnetted during January 6th. So I just don't think that it was appropriate, and it definitely shouldn't have been done, especially right now. But nonetheless, we will be mitigating it as best as we can on the House end as soon as we get back next week, and the Speaker fully supports that. Again, Representative Austin Scott has a piece of legislation to strip that. But I do think that Ducey's reporting was correct. I do think you'll see a handful of moderate Democrats voting to reopen the government. And honestly, I'm just happy that everyone stuck to their guns because, as you saw, the Democrats lost the debate on this one, and they definitely lost the vote.
Yeah,
that was the wrong audio. I thought I played the right audio. But even that, as it relates to this $500,000, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, again, Speaker Johnson said last night that they're going to introduce standalone legislation to reveal this provision next week. So I guess we'll stay tuned and see what happens.
All right, Casey, Crosbie, co-chair of the Republican National Committee. Thanks so much for joining us here on Detroit's Morning Answer. And guess what? Continue to fight like you're fighting, because what you guys are doing, I'm telling you, all this talk about Republicans are ditching Trump, the America First MAGA, I don't see it. I don't hear it. They can do whatever they try to do. But knowing that you are there directing the messaging of America First and MAGA, it really warms my heart. And I want to thank you for everything that you're doing.
Oh, thank you so much. We were behind President Trump 100%.
Amen. KC Crosbie, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Dude, how did that not? I thought I sent you that. I thought that was because the way I labeled it, Luna and Burchett. Yeah. Is it in there? Can you play that one? Just play it. Because I wanna make sure I sent it right.
See, we've been launching with the full unanimous consent.
There it is.
The power of the word no. I heard another word all day, Epstein.
Yeah.
What happened with the Epstein deal today?
Well, Tim Burchett made a motion. It's something called unanimous consent to basically say all members of the House of Representatives agree that this should be released, and the Democrats voted to block it. So if you don't think by now that the Democrats haven't used this basically as a political hot potato in an effort to smear the president and distract from their shutdown failure, you're not paying attention. So I'm happy that Representative Burchett did that. It just showed their hand. But Jesse, we've been launching with the full cooperation of the administration, a conclusive investigation and House oversight. There's many reports that we're waiting on from Treasury. The victims have promised names, but remember, there's also a pending lawsuit with Deutsche Bank on that. And so all that to say that, yes, we know Jeffrey Epstein was a bad guy, but we are doing everything that we can here, and it's the Democrats that voted to block it tonight.
What does that say? That they pushed out all these emails from the Oversight Committee, but then they blocked the full release, unanimous consent? I mean, that speaks volumes to what they're doing and the political games that they're playing as it relates to these files and as it relates to Epstein. Victims be damned. Detroit's Morning Answer. We'll be right back.